Good evening, my friends. Life often brings us moments of uncertainty, seasons of waiting, and times when we wonder where we stand in the hearts of others. We long for companionship, for love, for affirmation. But let me remind you today, God is in control, and His timing is always perfect. Too often, we chase people, relationships, and opportunities that seem just out of reach. We try to force our way into someone's life, thinking that if we just try harder, they will see our worth. But hear this: what God has ordained for you will not require you to beg, to plead, or to strive in your own strength. If someone is meant to be in your life, they will be there, and nothing will keep them away. If they are not, no amount of effort will change the plan that God has for you. We serve a sovereign God, a God who opens doors no man can shut and closes doors no man can open. When someone walks away, do not chase after them. Trust in God's wisdom. When someone hesitates to love you, do not force their hand. Trust in God's timing. If they belong in your life, God will align their heart with yours in His perfect way. We see this truth in the Scriptures. Proverbs 3:5-6 reminds us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." That includes the people He allows to walk with us on this journey of life. So, my dear friends, rest in this truth. God sees you. He knows your heart. He knows what you need far better than you do. And in His perfect time, He will bring the right people into your life, the ones who truly belong. Do not fear rejection, for your worth is not found in another person's acceptance. Do not dwell on those who walk away, for God is leading you toward something greater. Let go of your worries, trust in His plan, and watch as He unfolds His beautiful purpose in your life, one step at a time. May God bless you and keep you always. God is in control. Those 4 words carry more power than we often realize. In a world filled with uncertainty, heartbreak, and confusion, it is easy to believe that everything depends on us, our efforts, our strength, our decisions. We strive, we push, we manipulate circumstances to work in our favor, all while carrying burdens that were never meant for us to bear. But the truth remains unshaken. God is in control. When we understand this truth, our hearts can finally rest. Life has a way of presenting us with situations that make us question everything. We may face rejection from those we care about, unanswered prayers that leave us feeling abandoned, and closed doors where we desperately sought an opportunity. In these moments, doubt creeps in, whispering that we must take matters into our own hands, that we must fight to keep what is slipping away, that we must hold tightly to what God may be asking us to release. But faith calls us to surrender. Faith reminds us that God's hands are far stronger than ours, His plans far greater than anything we could imagine. Many times, we wrestle with the reality that some people walk away from our lives despite our best efforts to keep them. We wonder if we should try harder, love more, or prove our worth. But if someone is meant to be in your life, they will be there, not because you chased them, but because God placed them there. And if they are not meant to stay, no amount of striving will change God's plan. This is not rejection, this is divine redirection. It is God making room for something better, something that aligns with His purpose. There is peace in knowing that we do not have to force anything that is from God. What He has for us will not require us to beg, plead, or compromise who we are. If a door closes, it is because He has another one waiting to open. If a person leaves, it is because their part in our story has come to an end. We may not understand it in the moment, and the pain of letting go may feel overwhelming, but we can trust that every loss is making space for a greater gain. God's control is not limited to the people in our lives. It extends to every aspect of our existence. Our finances, our health, our dreams, and our struggles all fall under His sovereignty. When life feels unpredictable, when circumstances shift beyond our understanding, We must remind ourselves that nothing takes him by surprise. He sees what we cannot see. He knows what we do not know. And in every delay, every disappointment, and every detour, he is working behind the scenes to bring about his perfect plan. The challenge for us is to trust him even when the road ahead is unclear. Human nature wants control. We want to know what is coming next, how things will unfold, and when our prayers will be answered. But faith calls us to walk forward even when we cannot see the full picture. It calls us to believe that God is working all things together for our good, even when we feel like everything is falling apart. It calls us to let go of our need for control and rest in the assurance that the one who holds the universe in his hands is holding us too. This does not mean life will always be easy. It does not mean we will never experience heartache or face difficult seasons. But it does mean that we are never alone in our struggles. God is not a distant observer. He is an ever-present help in times of trouble. When the weight of the world feels too heavy, He is there to carry us. When we feel like we have lost everything, He is our firm foundation. When we question whether we are enough, He reminds us that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, deeply loved, and divinely chosen. There is freedom in surrendering to God's control. It frees us from the need to constantly prove ourselves, from the exhaustion of trying to hold everything together, from the anxiety of wondering what the future holds. When we trust in His plan, we can rest in the knowledge that He is already in our tomorrow, preparing the way for blessings we have yet to see. So let us stop striving, stop chasing, stop worrying about what is beyond our control. Instead, let us place our trust in the one who never fails, never leaves, and never stops working for our good. No matter what we face, no matter what we lose, no matter what uncertainties lie ahead, God is in control. And that is enough. What is meant for you will stay. This simple truth carries a profound depth that speaks to the very core of human longing. We all desire security, certainty, and reassurance that the people and opportunities in our lives are truly meant for us. But too often we hold on too tightly, afraid that what we cherish will slip through our fingers. We worry that if we don't try harder, if we don't prove ourselves, if we don't fight to keep certain people or circumstances, we will lose what we love. Yet, the reality is that what is meant for us does not need to be forced, and what is not meant for us cannot be held on to, no matter how hard we try. Life teaches us this lesson in ways that are often painful but necessary. We pour our hearts into relationships, investing our time, energy, and love into people we hope will stay. We hold on to friendships that feel one-sided, relationships that require us to shrink ourselves just to be accepted. We exhaust ourselves trying to earn love, trying to be enough, trying to convince others that we are worthy of staying in their lives. But love, true love, does not require convincing. What is meant for us will naturally align with us. It will stay not because we demand it to, but because it belongs with us in the first place. When someone walks away, we may be tempted to question our worth. We wonder what we could have done differently, how we could have been better, how we could have prevented the loss. But the truth is, nothing that is truly meant for us will ever require us to beg for its presence. People who are meant to be in our lives will choose to be there. They will not hesitate to love us, support us, and walk alongside us. Their presence will not feel like a constant battle to maintain, but rather a natural unfolding of God's plan. If someone leaves, it is not a reflection of our worth, but a redirection towards something greater. This truth does not only apply to relationships, it applies to every aspect of our lives. Doors that close, jobs we do not get, opportunities that pass us by. These are all part of a divine plan that is leading us towards something better. Sometimes we become so fixated on what we think we want that we fail to see that God has something far greater in store. We cling to a door that has closed, staring at it in disappointment, not realizing that just ahead, a better door is waiting to be opened. Trusting in the fact that what is meant for us will stay allows us to release our grip on what is not serving us and make room for what is truly ours. It is human nature to fear loss. We do not like uncertainty. We want to know that the people we love will always be there, that the things we work hard for will always remain. But life is ever changing, and seasons shift whether we are ready for them or not. The people who walk away, the plans that do not unfold the way we expected, the moments that leave us feeling like we have lost everything, these are not punishments, they are lessons. They are reminders that we are not in control, that we do not have to hold on so tightly, that we can trust in a God who knows what is best for us. When we embrace the idea that what is meant for us will stay, we begin to live with open hands rather than clenched fists. We stop chasing people who do not see our worth. We stop forcing situations that no longer serve our growth. We stop fearing the unknown and start trusting that the right people, the right opportunities, and the right moments will find us exactly when they are meant to. This trust does not mean we will never experience pain or loss, but it does mean that we can face those losses with peace, knowing that they are making space for something better. Letting go is not easy. It requires faith, patience, and a deep understanding that our value is not tied to who stays or who leaves. But when we trust that what is truly meant for us will never pass us by, we free ourselves from the burden of trying to control what was never ours to begin with. We step into a life of faith rather than fear, knowing that God's plan is always greater than our own. And in that surrender, we find true peace. Trust in God's timing is one of the greatest acts of faith a person can embrace. In a world that thrives on instant gratification, waiting can feel like a heavy burden. We want answers now, breakthroughs today, and solutions immediately. But God does not operate on our schedule. His ways are higher than ours, and His timing is always perfect, even when we do not understand it. Trusting in His timing requires patience, surrender, and the unwavering belief that He knows what is best for us far better than we do. Life often presents us with seasons of waiting, waiting for a prayer to be answered, waiting for a door to open, waiting for clarity in moments of confusion. These seasons can be frustrating, especially when we see others moving forward while we feel stuck. We question whether God has forgotten us, whether He hears our prayers, whether He sees our struggles. But God's silence is not His absence. His delays are not denials. Just because something is not happening right now does not mean it will not happen at the right time. His timing is never late, never early, but always perfectly aligned with His divine plan for our lives. Waiting is not just about the passing of time. It is about what God is doing within us while we wait. There are lessons He teaches in the waiting that we cannot learn any other way. He refines our character, strengthens our faith, and prepares us for what lies ahead. Sometimes we think we are ready for something, but God knows we are not. He sees the bigger picture, the challenges that we cannot yet perceive, the responsibilities that come with what we are asking for. He does not withhold blessings from us out of cruelty, but out of love. He ensures that when He gives us what we desire, we are equipped to steward it well. One of the greatest struggles in trusting God's timing is the temptation to take matters into our own hands. We grow impatient and start forcing things to happen according to our own plans. But when we rush ahead of God, we often end up with consequences we were never meant to face. We settle for less than what He intended for us. We make choices that lead to unnecessary pain and regret. But when we wait on Him, He orchestrates everything in a way that brings peace, clarity, and lasting joy. What He has for us will never require manipulation or striving. It will come in His perfect way and at the perfect time. The Bible is filled with stories of people who had to wait on God's timing. Abraham and Sarah waited years for the promised child. Joseph endured betrayal and imprisonment before stepping into his destiny. David was anointed as king long before he actually took the throne. Each of these individuals had moments of doubt, moments where they wondered if God had forgotten his promise. But in the end, God's timing proved to be flawless. Every delay served a purpose. Every waiting season was a preparation for something greater. The same is true for us. When we fully embrace the truth that God's timing is perfect, we learn to rest rather than worry. We stop comparing our journey to others because we understand that God has a unique plan for each of us. We let go of anxiety and frustration, knowing that what is meant for us will come when the time is right. We find peace in the midst of uncertainty because we know that our future is in the hands of a faithful God who never makes mistakes. Trusting in God's timing does not mean passively waiting without action. It means staying faithful in the present moment, doing what we can while leaving the outcome to Him. It means continuing to pray, to prepare, to grow, all while resting in the assurance that God is working behind the scenes. It means surrendering our timeline and embracing His, even when we do not understand it. And when His plans finally unfold, we will see that the wait was never wasted. It was always leading us to something greater than we could have imagined. Do not seek validation from others. The need for approval is something deeply ingrained in human nature. From the time we are children, we seek affirmation from parents, teachers, and friends. We want to be accepted, appreciated, and acknowledged. There is nothing inherently wrong with desiring encouragement. But when our sense of worth becomes dependent on the opinions of others, we step onto a path of insecurity and self-doubt. True validation comes not from people but from God, the one who created us with purpose and value beyond human measurement. Relying on others for validation is an endless cycle. No matter how much praise we receive, it will never be enough because human approval is temporary and conditional. People's opinions change, their standards shift, and their affirmations are often influenced by their own struggles and insecurities. When we build our identity on their words, we give them power over our self-worth. If they approve of us, we feel worthy. If they criticize or reject us, we feel inadequate. But our worth was never meant to be placed in the hands of people. It was determined by God long before we ever sought approval from anyone. One of the dangers of seeking validation from others is that it often leads us to compromise who we truly are. We begin to shape our actions, our words, and even our beliefs to fit what others expect of us. We silence our convictions to avoid disapproval. We shrink ourselves to fit into spaces that were never meant for us. We chase recognition, thinking that if we can just prove ourselves, we will finally feel valued. But the more we rely on external validation, the more we lose sight of our authentic selves. We become performers instead of people, always adjusting to please the crowd instead of standing firm in who God created us to be. There is a freedom that comes when we stop looking to others for validation. It allows us to live with confidence, knowing that our value is not up for debate. God calls us His beloved, His masterpiece, fearfully and wonderfully made. That truth does not change based on who approves of us or who does not. When we root our identity in Him, we no longer need the applause of the world to feel secure. We do not have to strive for acceptance because we are already fully accepted by the one who matters most. Many times, people seek validation because they fear rejection. They believe that if they do not meet certain expectations, they will not be loved or valued. But real love does not require constant performance. Those who truly care for us will see our worth without us having to prove it. They will appreciate us for who we are, not for how well we fit their idea of who we should be. And even if people do reject us, it does not diminish our value. Rejection from man does not mean rejection from God. Often, it is His way of protecting us from relationships and situations that were never meant to be part of our journey. Breaking free from the need for validation requires trust. Trust that we are enough as we are. Trust that God's approval is greater than man's applause. Trust that we do not have to chase affirmation because our worth is already established. It also requires a shift in focus. Instead of asking, "Do they approve of me?" we should ask, "Am I living in alignment with God's purpose for my life?" Instead of wondering, "Do they see my value?" we should remember that God saw our worth before we even took our first breath. When we stop seeking validation from others, we begin to live with boldness. We pursue our dreams without fear of criticism. We walk in confidence, knowing that our identity is secure. We set boundaries without guilt, recognizing that we are not defined by how much we please others. We find joy in being ourselves, without the weight of constantly proving that we are enough. And most importantly, we draw closer to God, allowing His truth to shape our hearts instead of the shifting opinions of the world. The need for validation is a burden that keeps many people trapped in a cycle of insecurity. But freedom comes when we realize that human approval is fleeting, while God's love is eternal. We do not need to seek permission to be worthy, to be loved, or to be enough. We already are, not because of what others say, but because of who God says we are. Let go and let God. These words carry a depth of meaning that can transform the way we navigate life's challenges. Yet, letting go is one of the hardest things to do. We hold on tightly to control, trying to manage every detail, fix every problem, and ensure that everything unfolds the way we believe it should. But the more we try to control, the more anxious and exhausted we become. Letting go does not mean giving up. It means surrendering to the one who is far greater, wiser, and more powerful than we are. It means releasing our grip and trusting that God's plan is always better than our own. There are many reasons people struggle to let go. Fear is one of the biggest. We fear the unknown, wondering what will happen if we stop trying to control every outcome. We fear loss, holding on to relationships, opportunities, or situations that may no longer be serving us. We fear failure, believing that if we stop striving, everything will fall apart. But fear is not from God. He has called us to live by faith, not by sight. Faith requires trust. Trust that even when we cannot see the full picture, God is working all things together for our good. When we let go of fear and place our confidence in Him, we find peace in knowing that we are in His hands. Another reason we struggle to let go is pride. We often believe that we know best, that if we just try harder or think through every possibility, we can solve our problems on our own. But human wisdom is limited, while God's wisdom is infinite. The more we rely on our own understanding, the more we distance ourselves from the guidance of the one who sees the bigger picture. Surrendering to God requires humility, an acknowledgement that we are not meant to carry every burden alone. When we lay down our pride and trust in His direction, we begin to experience the freedom that comes from knowing we are not responsible for controlling everything. Letting go also means releasing the weight of past hurts, disappointments, and regrets. Many people carry burdens from their past that prevent them from fully embracing the present. They replay old mistakes, dwell on missed opportunities, or hold on to resentment toward those who have hurt them. But God calls us to release these burdens. He offers healing for our wounds, restoration for what was lost, and new beginnings that are far greater than anything we leave behind. When we let go of past pain and trust Him with our future, we open the door to His blessings and allow Him to lead us into something better. Letting go does not mean doing nothing. It means doing what we can while leaving the rest in God's hands. It means praying instead of worrying, trusting instead of striving, and believing that God's timing is perfect, even when it does not align with our expectations. It is a daily choice to surrender, to release our grip, and to allow God to work in ways that we cannot yet see. When we do this, we begin to experience the peace that surpasses all understanding. The peace that comes from knowing that we are not alone, that we are not forgotten, and that God is always in control. There is great power in surrender. When we let go, we make room for God to move. We stop clinging to what is no longer meant for us and allow Him to bring what is. We release our worries and receive His peace. We step out of our own way and give Him the space to work miracles in our lives. Surrender is not a sign of weakness, it is an act of faith. It is a declaration that we trust God more than we trust our own understanding, that we believe His plans are greater than our own, and that we are willing to follow wherever He leads. Letting go and letting God is a journey, not a one-time decision. There will be moments when we want to take back control, when fear creeps in, when doubts arise. But each time we choose to surrender, we grow stronger in our faith. We learn to rest in God's promises, to trust in His love, and to walk in the freedom that comes from knowing that He is always working for our good. And as we continue to let go, we will see His hand in ways we never imagined, leading us to a life of peace, joy, and purpose beyond anything we could have orchestrated on our own. God's promises are faithful. In a world filled with uncertainty, broken commitments, and ever-changing circumstances, there is one truth that remains constant. God never fails to keep His word. His promises are not like human promises that can be altered, forgotten, or broken. When God speaks, His word stands firm. His faithfulness does not waver based on situations or emotions. What He has said, He will accomplish. What He has declared, He will fulfill. No matter how long it takes or how impossible it may seem, His promises remain true because He is unchanging, sovereign, and infinitely faithful. Life often tests our ability to trust in God's promises. There are seasons of waiting, seasons of hardship, and moments when circumstances seem to contradict what God has spoken. In these moments, doubt tries to creep in, whispering that perhaps God has forgotten us, that maybe His promises were not meant for us. But God's faithfulness is not determined by our feelings. Even when we do not see evidence of His work, He is moving. Even when we do not understand His timing, He is orchestrating everything for our good. His promises are not dependent on our ability to see the outcome. They are grounded in His eternal nature. Throughout Scripture, God's faithfulness is demonstrated time and time again. He promised Abraham that he would become the father of many nations. And though the fulfillment of that promise seemed delayed, it came to pass in God's perfect time. He assured the Israelites that He would lead them to the promised land. And though they faced trials, setbacks, and long years in the wilderness, His word remained true. He spoke of a Savior who would come to redeem mankind, and in the fullness of time, Jesus Christ fulfilled that promise, proving once again that God always keeps His word. God's promises extend beyond biblical times. They are alive and active today. He promises to be with us, never leaving nor forsaking us, even in our loneliest moments. He assures us of His provision, that He will supply all our needs according to His riches in glory. He promises peace that surpasses understanding, a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances, but on His presence within us. He declares that His plans for us are good, plans to give us hope and a future. These promises are not empty words. They are the unshakable foundation upon which we can build our lives. One of the greatest challenges in trusting God's promises is the waiting. There are times when His answers do not come as quickly as we would like, and in our impatience, we may be tempted to take matters into our own hands. But when we try to force outcomes instead of trusting in His timing, we often create unnecessary struggle. God does not forget His promises, and He does not delay without purpose. He is always working behind the scenes, aligning circumstances, preparing our hearts, and ensuring that when His promise is fulfilled, it is at the perfect moment. What He has spoken will come to pass, not a second too early or too late. Holding on to God's promises requires faith, a faith that does not waver even when the road ahead seems unclear. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not yet seen. It is choosing to trust even when circumstances say otherwise. It is believing that God is faithful even when life is difficult. The more we meditate on His Word, the more we remind ourselves of His past faithfulness, the stronger our faith becomes. His track record is perfect, and He will not fail now. God's promises are not just for our comfort. They are meant to transform the way we live. When we truly believe in His faithfulness, we no longer live in fear or anxiety. We walk in confidence, knowing that He is in control. We step out in boldness, knowing that He goes before us. We release our burdens, knowing that He is our provider, our protector, and our refuge. His promises give us hope in the darkest seasons and strength when we feel weak. They remind us that no matter what happens, we are held by a God who never goes back on His word. God's promises are an anchor for the soul, steady and unwavering in the storms of life. They are not based on human ability, but on His divine power. When everything else fails, His word stands. When people disappoint us, He remains faithful. When we feel lost, His promises guide us. No matter what challenges arise, we can trust that God will fulfill what He has spoken. He has never failed, and He never will. His promises endure forever, and those who place their trust in Him will never be disappointed. So, hold on to His promises with unwavering faith. No matter how long the wait, no matter how difficult the journey, trust that God is faithful to fulfill His word. Do not let doubt or fear shake your confidence in Him. Instead, stand firm, knowing that His plans for you are good, His timing is perfect, and His love never fails. When everything else is uncertain, His promises remain unshakable. Keep believing, keep trusting, and keep walking in faith, for the one who has spoken will surely bring it to pass.